Hmm. Good evening and salutations, my Beyond the Gates fans. Okay, so I did a short about maybe a couple weeks ago, announcing that Beyond the Gates got renewed for a second season. And I wanted to sit there and kind of talk about it a little bit more, since one, there's not an actual episode because it's a repeat, and two, just to kind of give more of my general thoughts about this show. I didn't want to keep it too lengthy because it was a short, but here's my thing. There's been very mixed reviews, right? When the show first came out, been very mixed reviews. And I've been one of those people that's just been like, you know what? Why don't we sit there and, it's still finding its legs, it's still kind of finding its groove and stuff like that. Let's just sit there and give it some time. And let's see, the show came out in around February. So give or take, I would sit there and say maybe about 2 or 3 months, essential. And one of the things I realized about the show is this is as good as it's going to get. So if you are waiting for this show to get better, yeah, I don't see that happening. I feel like this is one of those shows where it's a very mixed bag. You either going to love this show or it's not going to be for you. And that's fine. Back in the day when they sit there and have way more shows, there were shows that appealed to some people, and there was other shows where it's like, eh, not for me. Now, personally, one, I'm be honest, I couldn't really recommend this show. Um, I just couldn't. I don't think that the show is bad, but if I was just looking at this from a fan's point of view, and just somebody who just wants to generally, watch shows or whatever, I don't think I would pick this show up. I really don't. I think in life there's a limited amount of time where it's like you only have so much time to devote towards soaps and other shows or whatever, and I just don't see me as a fan just watching this from a fan's point of view to really watch the show. Now, because I do reviews and stuff like that, I do cover all of them plus Hollyoaks and some other stuff, but just fans point. Now the thing about this show is that it has some good actors and it has some really bad actors, right? And this isn't one of those things where it's like, oh, if you give it a little more time, they'll get better. Maybe, but we still got to sit there and kind of suffer through these growing pains, right? There's just certain actors that's just not really doing it. Ashley, Derek, Andre, Chelsea, Tomas, just name a few. And what's really bad is that it's more glaring when they're around stronger actors, right? Like remember old Ted when he was around Eva, or Eva when he's around when she's around, let's say either Ted or Tomas. It's bad. It's really, really bad. Now again, not all of them are bad. You got Nina, you got Vernon, they've been in the game for a while, right? Bill's actually a pretty good actor. Danny kills it. Um, Naomi is actually pretty good. And the problem is when Naomi is around Chelsea, it makes her acting looks even worse. Hell, even around Kat to some extent. Kat is actually a decent actor. She's a much better actor. So it's one of those things where it's like when they're in the same scene and they're doing a scene together, it's just like, man, this is kind of rough. this is this is kind of rough, right? When I started watching the show, one of the things that was like really bothering me was the Danny problem. It was always poor Danny this or poor Danny that. It was always like Danny and her obsession with Bill. It was always Bill and Haley constantly talking about Danny. And he stopped for the most part, which I'm very happy about. But now it's like it went to this other extreme. And this is where I talk about Leslie. Leslie has got to be among probably the worst villains that I've seen because she comes across as extremely cartoonish. Watch this clip, and you tell me.
Oh, Ted, I would like to examine your whole entire existence. Therapy this, cognitive that, psychobabble, psychobabble, psychobabble. Oh,
And that's on. You know what? The sad thing is that that's actually one of her least annoying scenes. Imagine that dragging on for a good 10, 15 minutes. If I was new and I was like there watching the show, I'd be like, what the is this? The level of cartoonish reminds me of Jordan Howard on The Young and the Restless. Like it's pretty bad. Like it's really, really bad and really obnoxious. And now we're getting to this point, this extreme where it just every scene that she in, it just it's agonizing to watch, right? Probably my favorite story so far has got to be the Doug, Vanessa, and Joey stuff. And not just because Joey adds a certain level of danger and excitement to the show and suspense, but also, I mean, I've been here today. I've been watching soap operas, particularly like General Hospital and stuff, since high school, right? I've never seen a relationship on scene, like whatever, where you practically have well, a cuck, right? Like that shit is just wild to me. Your girl out there banging God knows who, and you're just at home like, yep, yeah, that's cool. What? Like that's just wild to me. That is just wild to me. And if like they do find a way to like get past all that, I think that'd be pretty interesting, you know? Like I'm not in the couples and I'm not really into couples and stuff like that, but it's interesting watching a relationship like that because it's like, how did you get to that point in your marriage where that's just become acceptable? Like I don't get it, but it also fascinates me in a sense, right? And here we go right back that I swear I feel like I have more negative to say things to say than positive. But here's where we get right back to some of the other problems. And one of them and Days for Dummies, um, or their segment from G's 10th floor, which by the way is kind of a stupid name if we're gonna be honest, but one of the things that a lot of reviewers have noticed and has cringed about is the goddamn overuse of slang. Listen, I'm very happy that they're bringing the soap opera into the modern era, right? Like, there's a lot of cool and interesting stuff that they talk about. It wasn't like on General Hospital when you sit there and make up some sort of made up sites like MyFace or whatever. It's like, no, they talking about Instagram. They talking about the shade room. They talking about actual stuff that we see on a daily day basis. But then you get to the point where it's like the slang, right? And particularly with like Samantha, Tyrell, um, and Chelsea, which momager and step monster, like who says it? Who talks like that? And the sad thing is that there are Gen Z kids that do generally tend to talk like that. And it's so got it's so annoying to sit there and hear it in real life when you're in like grocery stores or whatever. Then when you turn on the TV, it's like the last thing that I feel like listening to is that, you know? A little goes a long way. And sometimes I feel like they just kind of overdo it. Now, one of the other things that people have said that has bothered them, it hasn't really bothered me so much, is the product placement. Because sometimes, like, I remember there was one scene where you had Jacob and Naomi in the bed, right? And they're talking about something or whatever. And you see the goddamn tide on the bed. And I'm like, what are we doing? Who sleeps with Tide on their goddamn bed? Now, granted, they made a mess or whatever, and that's why she was like, "Oh, don't worry, I got the Tide or whatever." And it felt very commercialist, commercially, whatever. Like, but I get it. They got to sit there and pay bills, and these soap operas to produce, I can only imagine is hella expensive. And people have sat there and said, maybe they could sit there and be a little more clever about it. And part of me is like, well, yeah, it doesn't have to be so like stupid in a sense, but sometimes I do kind of sit there and wonder, it's like, well, how clever are they supposed to sit there and be like? People used to get all upset with the Transformer movies because it was way over the top, but it's like, what's the middle ground? So I guess for me, I'm not. It doesn't really bother me that much. It's silly sometimes, but it's not the worst. It's really not the worst. Um, Other than that, overall, I would sit there and say the show is okay. You know, it's not super amazing. It's not terrible. But I understand if it's not necessarily everyone's cup of tea, right? The only show that and I will sit there and stand by as far as recommend another show outside of General Hospital will be Days of Our Lives. Hands effing down, I will always sit there and recommend people to sit there and watch Days of Our Lives. But this show, I don't know what it needs. Again, I think this is one of those things where it's like, is as good as it's gonna get. So if people are waiting, yeah. Yeah, I don't I don't I don't see it getting any better. Now I feel like there's something else I gotta sit there. Oh, and the renewals, right? So one of the things that people were upset about was that it only got renewed for like one more season. And I think that's how they're gonna kind of keep doing it, as opposed to Bold and the Beautiful and Young and the Restless, where they'll get like a 3-year renewal and they'll just sit there and coast on their ass, right? And people will sit there and look at that and be like, oh, well, it's not fair. I don't understand. Why should show only getting one renewal when the other ones that are dog shit or whatever, they're getting way more? And it's like, well, see what they're doing with their renewals? Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting there saying every episode is terrible, but I mean, I kind of want them to sit there and prove themselves in a way where it's like, as a viewer, yeah, you're gonna put in that work, and I'm gonna watch as long as you put in that work, from a fan's point of view, right? Like, it's a little bit different if I was just a regular watcher or whatever. Like, I probably would have stopped watching most of these shows and just kind of came back like back and forth or whatever. But it's like now you got YNR and they could just I mean, now I think BNB got renewed for like what, 3 more years. Now they could just sit there and just put out any goddamn awful storyline that they want and just be like, well, we got 3 more years. And don't get me wrong, don't get it twisted. They can, even if they got 3 more years, they can still be canceled. Okay. They if their ratings hit rock bottom, I'm pretty sure they'll find a way to get out of that contract. Okay, because no company is going to want to lose money. But I just feel like it's a smarter choice for Beyond the Gates to always sit there and strive for the best, and not be like, all right, we got like 2 years, so we don't really have to try that hard. In my personal opinion. Now, I'm pretty sure there's other reasons why people are upset about the fact that those two got renewals and that one didn't, and optics and stuff like that. And I can kind of see where that's going on some level. But then on the other hand, I'm just like, they've been on the air longer. They've been on the air longer, and for better or worse, they've proven themselves. Beyond the Gates is what, I think like 3 months in. So if they didn't get a 3-year renewal, it may not necessarily be because of optics. It may just simply be because they're still new. Anyway, if I forget anything, let me know what your thoughts are. Are you liking the gays? Are you a fan of the gays? Why are you watching it? Why'd you sit there and cut out? Because like I said, I've talked to people that's like, yeah, I tried to watch the show and it wasn't for me, you know. And if you're one of those cases, why? What do you think that they could sit there and do better? Because that's another thing that I always sit there and get. Is it the editing? Because that's been kind of issue as well. Or what are your thoughts on in the comment section below? And I will see you in the next video.